Big 12.
Boom. Number 12, amendment number 12. Let's read it right off the ballot here.
The easiest one.
Lobbying and abuse of office by public officers. Okay. I'm interested. Expands current restrictions on lobbying for compensation by former public officers. Create restrictions on lobbying for compensation by serving public officers and former justices and judges. Provides exceptions. Prohibits abuse of a public position by public officers and employees to obtain a personal benefit.
Right.
So what is this saying here?
Yeah, so this is super popular, I think. This would make it, when you're a politician and you stop being a politician, you have to wait longer before you can be a lobbyist. That's what it does, very straightforward. There's a 2-year ban right now. This would make it a 6-year ban. So a longer time after you get out of office before you can be a lobbyist. So I think there's a visceral, people like that idea because we don't like, we think when a politician's in office, if he's thinking about, well, I'm only in office for 10 years and then I got like 20 or 30 years working as a lobbyist. So why don't I just start selling out right now, right? So I can make my career as lucrative as possible. I think if you're electing people who are like that, that might be the problem, but people don't want that dynamic. They want to keep the thinking about your lobbying career as far from these guys as possible.
Yeah, this is the first thing I see that seems to try to limit some of the power of government in Tallahassee. Right. It seems to me like anything like this is a good idea to at least consider. You create moral hazards when you start allowing people to posture for power as they're going to be out of it, and so anything you can do to kind of create a buffer between them and that positioning for power is a good thing. So,
well, I've got a flip side to that.
Okay.
Even though generally I'm totally agreeing with what you're saying. I think we need to find ways to limit the power of these state officials. I wonder how much this really works, and this mostly comes from I've spent a couple of decades working in legislature. I go to Tallahassee way too much and spend way too much time in there. And there's a couple complications to this. First of all, I think people's caricature of how politicians are is way off. I mean, sometimes it's right. I mean, some people are really like that. We all see people like that. But most people who run for office and get elected, if you've ever met them, they are kind of regular folks in a lot of ways. They're really not that. A campaign, people want to say, well, if you got money from company X, clearly you're always voting for company X. And they forget, well, they also got money from you and your neighbor and the party and company Y.
And then company X might have given money to the other candidate too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's actually, there's the buying votes thing doesn't work really very well at all. Not that it never happens, but it's not nearly as much as most people think. The other thing is that lobbying is kind of part of free speech. Sure. I mean, it's not like they're in there making contractual deals. They're just presenting art. If you ever watch lobbyists, all they are is salesmen. They're making a pitch, and either the legislator is persuaded or he's not. And part of how the system works is legislators are not experts on everything. They listen to both sides and they make up their mind. Lobbying's part of both sides. Yeah. Nobody's getting lobbied by only one side.
To have any real impact, I agree with you. To have any real impact, I think the focus needs to be on potentially the funding mechanisms inside of elections, as opposed to, because lobbying, again,
or even more, just what decisions they can make. If they can't make decisions, we talked about this earlier. The more we give them the power over, the more decisions they make. The less decisions they make, the less we have to worry about those decisions being corrupt.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, lobbying works like advertising in a certain sense, right? And the biggest problem is that there are often imbalances in who's spending or how people are spending. And again, that's a conversation for another time.
Right.
But what this does is it creates a buffer between the time you get out of your office in Tallahassee and step into the office as a lobbyist for 6 years instead of 2.
Gotta wait 6 years instead of 2. There you go.
All right.